Okay, thank you, everyone. I'd like to call the November 10th, 2025 meeting of the El Dorado Irrigation District Board of Directors to order. Roll call, please.
At 9:03 a.m., we have directors Penn, Mansfield, Dwyer, Anzini, and Day present, General Manager Vandiar, General Counsel Polson, and Board Clerk Sullivan present.
Okay, thank you. Please rise and join me in the pledge. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. I'd have a moment of silence for our veterans, but it'd be kind of self-serving, so I'm not going to do that, since I are one. Okay. Well, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any board comments? Any public comment on the adoption of the agenda?
If members of the public would like to address the board on the adoption of today's agenda, please refer to the detailed instructions in today's agenda. President Dwyer, it doesn't appear any members of the public are wishing to address the board on the adoption of today's agenda, moved by Director Day and seconded by Director Mansfield. I believe we're ready for the vote.
Okay, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Communications from the general manager on employee recognition. Avani?
Thank you, President Dwyer. So we have recognition related to the district received a message from an EID customer expressing appreciation for the outstanding service provided by Matt Frazier and the construction and maintenance team in the drinking water division. During a leak repair near the customer's parking lot, Matt served as the primary contact, clearly communicating the work that needed to be done and helping the customer prepare for a potential water shutoff. The team arrived as scheduled, completed the repair efficiently, and maintained a respectful and professional presence throughout the process. The customer noted that the work area looked even better than before the repair and appreciated the extra care taken to clean up, including washing away any dirt that had reached the parking lot. As part of our guiding principles, delivering excellent customer service is essential, and we commend Matt and the team for their dedication and positive impact on the customer experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. I think the board extends their appreciation as well. That's the kind of behavior we encourage. Okay. Public comment. Is there any public comment on items that are not on today's agenda?
If members of the public would like to address the board, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2. President Dwyer, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak at this time.
Okay, thank you. Back to communications in general, then. General Manager, do we have nothing? Thank you. Jennifer, do you have anything for us?
Nothing today, thank you.
Okay, my fellow board members, are any exciting things happening or special Yes, Director Anzini.
Let me, first of all, I want to applaud the changes of social media that we're getting a lot of recognition, and a lot of people, my constituents, will approach me and say, I like this information. I keep telling them to share those websites. That would be Instagram and Nextdoor, and also Facebook. I applaud the staff for doing this because I think that we're in that information age where people are seeking everything online rather than getting in their cars and going to meetings, which that's the way we improve our society. But compliments to the input, the output is going out there. The other item I want to bring up is our website is a source of information that I direct people to all the time. For instance, right now, we are that area that we ask people to reduce your amount of water bill is to turn off your irrigation outside. And I was able to just hand this out to my gardener and also hand it out to another friend who was having leak problems. I said, refer to this first before you call a plumber. And it was very, very informative for them, and it was just easy to do that. So I appreciate all the information that we have online for all of our customers.
Thank you, Director Anzini. Any other? Yes, Director Penn.
I want to add to what Lori said about the work on the public information. You know, I've always felt that aggressive public information really helps us in our relationship to the community. So hats off to Jen and the work she and everyone else has been doing. So most appreciated. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to sit at the Outingdale Improvement Club, which is really the only kind of organization in Outingdale, which many people forget is one of our satellite small systems that we adopted a while back. Just introduced myself when I was running. I didn't have the opportunity, and they had one of their regular meetings, not so regular meetings. And I just, indicated that I was their representative on the board, and I just came to say hello. But they just seemed appreciative because they are, the far-flung system that we have.
Thank you very much. Any other board comments? Okay, I would like to piggyback on Director Anzini and say the staff that's handling a lot of those social media posts and improvements is sitting right there. It's Jennifer's effort. Thank you so much for doing that. Also, an innovative new link on our homepage, the transparency page. So pretty much anything you want to know about the district is there. Our salaries, the benefits, the costs, the good, the bad, and sometimes the ugly. So that's a great resource. Thank you again. Okay. Consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Prior to any motion, I'd like to pull item number 2 for separate considerations and recuse myself from that item for the same reasons previously stated at previous
Got it.
meetings.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any board comments? Is there any public comment on the consent calendar? Minus item 2.
If members of the public would like to address the board on the approval of today's consent calendar, please refer to the instructions in today's agenda. President Dwyer does not appear there. Any members of the public wishing to speak on the approval of today's consent calendar? Absent number 2, moved by Director Mansfield and seconded by Director Anzini. I believe we're ready for the vote.
Thank you. Please vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 voting aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Thank you all. Now, moving on to consent item.
I'll move consent item 2.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Consent, any other board comments? Is there any public comment?
If members of the public would like to address the board, please refer to the instructions in today's agenda. President Dwyer does not appear there. Any members of the public wishing to speak on the approval of consent item number 2, moved by Director Day and seconded by Director Anzini, with Director Mansfield recusing himself. believe we're ready for the vote.
Thank you. Please vote.
Division 1, 2, 4, and 5 voting aye, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to information item number 9,
Sorry about that.
status of our responses to the grand jury.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Pravani Vandya. I am the general manager for El Dorado Irrigation District, and today I'm going to give you a status update on our items related to a grand jury report that the district received in April of this year. Our responses included items that we were going to work on, so we think that a status update in terms of where we are at with those items is warranted. Next slide. In June of this year, the board approved the district's grand jury responses that we received from the El Dorado County Civil Grand Jury in April of the year. You can move to the next slide. So the grand jury report included 7 findings and 5 recommendations, and the district was required to respond to those per state statute. We responded. However, there is a format that responses are required to be in, and we complied with the formatting of that, including how you worded your responses, the initial response. The board approved those responses in June of this year, and we submitted those responses to the grand jury the same day. All of those documents are available on the district's website if anyone wishes to look at those. The board requested a status update in a prior meeting, and today I'm going to provide you that update, including some of our efforts along financial lines for the district. Finding 1, and forgive me, but I'm going to read through the findings and the recommendations just to refresh memory in terms of what they actually were. So the first finding was a significant turnover in the EID Finance Department from 2022 to 2023 contributed to staff's inability to maintain financial policies and transparency. An update on this was the district filled the finance director position in July of this year. The finance director has 23 years of fiscal management experience in municipal government and 10 years overseeing the water, wastewater, and drainage funds for municipal utility. We restructured 2 positions to create separation of duties, which is critical for budget and accounting for review purposes. A finance manager position was created and an accounting supervisor position. The finance manager position was filled internally with a candidate that we had on staff here in October. This person has 5 years of experience in government fiscal management and over 2 years with the district. The accounting supervisor and administrative analyst positions are currently vacant. However, they're currently in recruitment, and we're hoping to fill them as quickly as we can. Finding 2, EID lacked or ignored accounting policies regarding commingling funds and transfers between water and wastewater enterprises. Even very large transactions of this type were not discussed or approved at the board level. The district disagreed with this finding in its original response. The 2024 ACFA, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, included a restatement of the 2023 pension-related amounts that were incorrectly transferred between 2 funds. These corrections are detailed in the notes on note 10 of the 2024 ACFA. Finding number 3, Statutory requirements for reporting facility capacity charges are being met primarily through the annual comprehensive financial report. The lack of a dedicated compliance report reduces transparency and traceability, making it challenging for the EID board and public to provide effective oversight. Our first standalone FCC report was presented to the board on June 23rd of this year. During 2024 year-end processing, staff reclassified FCC-eligible expenditures, resulting in an updated report that was issued on August 25th of this year. Our annual reporting will continue to be completed within the 180 days of year-end per California Government Code, and the FCC reports are available on the district's website. I'm going to go through report findings 4, 5, 6, and 7 because they are all somewhat related. The issuance of a pension obligation bond in 2022 carried financial risk that was not adequately communicated. The board provided only minimal oversight of the decision, deferring completely to the general manager and financial advisors rather than providing sound governance. Finding 5, the EID...
Before you proceed,
Yes.
can I interject that the proof is in the pudding? In the finding number 4, we had a recent update on how the savings from making that decision are accumulating. So far, we've saved our ratepayers around $1 million. So it's a little tough to say that was a bad decision when it's proving out. Now, is there risk? Of course, could go the other way. But in our determination, we said we think it's worth taking a chance. We trust our bond issuers more than we do CalPERS. Thanks.
Thank you. Finding 5, the EID board collectively has lacked sufficient financial expertise and engagement in recent years to provide adequate oversight in the absence of a financially focused subcommittee or neutral outside expertise. Finding 6, the issuance of a pension obligation bond in 2022 carried financial risk that was not adequately communicated. The board provided only minimal oversight of the decision, deferring completely to the general manager and financial advisors rather than providing sound governance. Finding 7, the EID board collectively has lacked sufficient financial expertise and engagement in recent years to provide adequate oversight in the absence of a financially focused subcommittee or neutral outside expertise. The district's update on this, these findings require no further action and were fully addressed in the district's June 23rd response. Now we're going on to the recommendations that were part of the grand jury report. Recommendation 1, direct the auditor of the 2024 ACFA to verify by September 30th, 2025, and publicly report that all significant deficiencies noted in the 2023 Auditor's Memorandum of Internal Control have been rectified and not repeated through actions documented and taken in management's response to the auditor's recommendations. Our update, the 2024 ACFA was presented to the board on August 25th, 2025. Staff included internal control findings in the ACFA. Now, this is not a requirement of the Government Finance Officers Association. The 2023 internal control findings were not repeated in the 2024 findings. One material weakness was identified related to the 2023 restatements resulting from inadequate closing procedures and insufficient review of financial statements. This weakness is expected when errors are found from prior years. New finance department structure will ensure that we have adequate review controls going forward, and our finance director will review and adjust closing procedures as necessary. There were 2 significant deficiencies identified. The complexity of the structure of our accounting records indicate that accounting structure is not properly designed. Current accounting software limitations contribute to this complexity, and we're working on the implementation of a new financial software that will resolve this issue. Our utility billing system, that's Infor for public sector, data transferred to the accounting system, which is Great Plains, was missing data identified during transfers. The issue was corrected during the year-end process.
I have a statement, I just need I want to italicize it. Implementation of a new financial software is really important, that we not stay in Windows 98, that we move forward in making sure our systems are updated continually, because paying now is much better than dealing with the grand jury later.
I absolutely agree with that, and I'm happy to say that we're on the pathway to changing our Windows systems as well as some of our information technology systems. Recommendation 2, direct staff to create and make publicly available a separate report on the district's facility capacity charge account within 180 days of each fiscal year end, which includes all the information in the California Government Code section 66013D and is generally shown in the example reports provided from other water districts herein. Our update is per report finding 3. This recommendation has been resolved and will continue to be provided as we have this year. Recommendations 3 and 4. Direct staff to create policies by September 30th, 2025 that establish a finance committee with the responsibility to act as a crucial resource to the board, providing analyses and recommendations critical to the organization's financial decision-making process. Recommendation 4, direct staff to implement a revised capital improvement plan project tracking page that offers a more realistic total cost estimate, including construction cost estimates for each project throughout its duration in the CIP by August 31st of 2025. These recommendations require no further action. Per the district's June 23rd response, we will not implement these because they are not warranted. Recommendation 5. Direct staff to extend its CIP from a 5-year to a 10-year planning horizon by September 30th, 2025, which will provide more flexibility in the managing budgets and allow for more stable rate adjustments over time. Our status update is this recommendation requires no further action since implementation is not warranted. The recommendation was to implement a 10-year CIP by September 30th. The district will instead implement a 30-year capital and asset management plan and an enterprise resource planning system that includes long-range financial planning. However, I must caveat that beyond the 5-year timeline, the cost estimations are very high-level estimations and they can change significantly over time. We're engaged with the GFOA to review processes recommended by industry best practices. We're assisting with the ERP system. We have a request for proposals for that new system. We will do vendor selection and implementation with support from the vendor. The system will include, at a minimum, accounting, budgeting, CIP with long-range financial planning, contracts and procurement, grants management, and reporting. We feel that these, at a minimum, are critical for us to be able to manage the work we have, our budgets, and also to ensure that we're sharing our long-term financial planning with our customers and the board. Additional efforts that we're making is to develop a 30-year capital and asset management plan. We've started to engage in that process with some of the assessments we've been doing on a critical infrastructure. However, we have to continue doing those assessments for everything that we have within our systems. The Finance Department position restructures, as noted in Report Finding 1. We have separation of duty for the finance manager and the accounting supervisor. This ensures separation of duty as well as multi-levels of review for all financial transactions. Our admin analysts will be cross-trained on all functions rather than assigned to a single area, and that assures that we have the ability to pivot when we have staff who are on leave. We have other employees who can step into those roles. The Finance Department is currently reviewing district board policies and administrative regulations to align with industry best practices. You've seen some of those already come through to you for approval as we've engaged in board meetings. We've created a dedicated transparency page on the district's website that includes financial reports to improve public access, but also to ensure over time, as we have updated financial information, we can post it to that page so our customers can see exactly what the updates are. We'll have historical data available on the website, but not directly on the transparency page. So the transparency page will represent the latest information.
Pravani, go back one slide, please. Yeah, I'm a big supporter of the development of the 30-year capital and asset management plan. I know it'll take time, and I think we all recognize that the further out you go, the less accurate any dollar estimates are going to be. But I think will be very useful for us to see what's coming down the road towards us. And like, for instance, the El Dorado Hills Water Treatment Plant, massive, massive project. I think my heart stops every time I see the dollar amounts involved in it, that thing. But it kind of jumped onto the CIP. Now, I know staff was aware of it, but the board was not as aware of it. And I think having this and reviewing this, it will help us say, well, we've got, and basically, I wouldn't even worry about dollar amounts. It's just, these are small projects, these are medium projects, and these are large projects. But we know what's probably heading down, and obviously things will shift over time, but I'm a big supporter of it.
Thank you, and I absolutely agree with that, which is why we're working towards the 30-year. Yes, there'll be numbers that are estimates, but they will be numbers that we can confidently say at this point in time, this is what we anticipate this will cost, so that at least, yes, we know in the long term what that timeline, what the financing looks like, what the needs are, and then we can start making higher level decisions. But yes, I agree with the importance of having that information. So this item was for informational purposes only, and I am available as well as staff if there are any additional questions.
Just some thoughts. First of all, thank you for the extensive information in the board packet. It really went into much more depth, and I appreciate that. As a public agency, we need to be able to withstand scrutiny at any time, and sometimes to invite scrutiny. The grand jury report, there's some things that were valid and some things that were probably more perception than anything else. And I think the district's response was adequate and measured, and we took appropriate actions where it was appropriate. Again, that ability to be transparent and to withstand scrutiny at any time is what we need to do. And I want to reiterate from that grand jury report that for all the things they listed, one of the things that they stated was that there was no malfeasance. No money ended up where it shouldn't have been in the long term. And so, and a lot of this deals with our rates and aging infrastructure. And the thing that we will be dealing with over that entire 30-year plan and going forward. So I think these are positive steps, and we just need to keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Penn. Any other comments? Yes, Director
Just one last
Day.
that I think you might already have it planned, but as far as doing a follow-up, maybe next June, when we hit the 1-year anniversary, so to speak, of the grand jury report, that we maybe do another follow-up to see where we're at so we can close things out.
Yes, sorry, I should have said that. So the plan is we're doing the status update. We will give status updates until we close every item related to the grand jury report, including the financial system its implementation successfully, that will be the closeout of all the items, but we plan on giving status updates as we move forward. We'll plan on doing it when we have more substantive information to provide, but absolutely, yes, we will be coming back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Anzini?
Thank you. I know that it was kind of painstakingly like pulling hair or trimming your fingernails on trying to do this report, but I think it was really important that we get a conception or a presentation that the general public can understand. That is when there's a grand jury report, there's a clutch your pearl moment. Employees get a little upset because they think they've been doing their job right, but in the perception is Director Osborne. My God, I'm sorry, George.
Hey, I was a firefighter 10,000 years.
No, George is but the procedure is painful for the employees involved and painful for the reallotment of personnel in order to deal with transparency, and which is one of the things that I believe all the board is really, really embracing. The more information out there, the less perception that there's malfeasance, and there is none. Thank you very much.
I'll just pile on and, oh, I'm sorry, did you have?
Well, I was going to sort of double down on that. I think, false narratives can travel the globe before the truth even gets its shoes tied. This is one of those cases. We have a new general manager, obviously, new hires in the finance department, some restructuring. You're leveraging software solutions. So from my seat as a board member, I really look forward to the fruits of all that labor and judging that work product over the coming years. And I hope to use some of those results to combat some of those false narratives in public. I am really optimistic we're going to see improved accuracy, efficiency, and we're already taking steps towards transparency in that arena. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
If I could just add one quick thing. It's really important to ensure that we have tools that help us do what we need to do to show everyone what we're doing. The narrative on the missing, and I'll put it in quotation marks because we haven't found any money missing, the missing money, there's been no proof of missing money. However, I would like to ask anyone who has proof of that, if they bring it forward, we're happy to look at it. But to date, we've not identified any missing funds. And so that narrative right now is completely untrue. If anyone has proof of it, I would love to see it so we can figure that out.
Thank you. I'd just like to comment on some things that you've said about our approval in the grand jury report about extending our CIP to 10 years. We're going to do a master plan that goes 30 years, as we should. And I know we're going to approve or talk about the CIP a little bit later on, but it seems like we're moving in the right direction, that there should be a baseline in the CIP of stuff we got to do year after year after year. If we've got 30 tanks and they need to be recoated every 15 years, then we should be doing 4 a year. And that should be a baseline in our CIP. And like Director Anzini said last time, it's the Golden Gate Bridge. You start painting on this end, you get to the end, and you got to start over again. And the same is true for our pipelines, our transmission pipelines. We know how many miles we have. We know how long they're supposed to last. It's do the division and then include the pipeline replacement as a baseline in the CIP. I'm sure there's other things that we know that are like that. That's before we add on any major installations or improvements or anything else. So I look forward to seeing that in our plan for the next 30 years. Not that I'll be around to see it.
And we're working towards that. I think our challenge in these years, and I mean this year and the next year and probably the year after that, is we do not have adequate funding to do all the projects we need to do for our infrastructure. And so it's a struggle when you fund a line item and something breaks, falls apart, stops working, and you have to repair it. You take money from those line items because you're hoping that those pipelines are going to last a little longer so you can take care of this project before you get back to that. However, as we work going forward, as we build up our reserves and we get beyond having reserves available, then we'll have money to be able to start funding those baselines. So we are more proactive rather than being reactive in the projects we engage in. That's the goal. And this is something that I've talked to all staff. We're all on the same page. We all want to do it. It's going to take us a little bit of time before we get there.
Thank you very much. Any other is there any public comment on this presentation?
If members of the public would like to address the board on information item number 9, please refer to the instructions in today's agenda. President Dwyer, it does not appear any members of the public are wishing to speak on information item number 9.
Thank you very much. Good presentation. Moving on to legislative report. Brian, are you going to lead us off, or Bob?
Good morning, members of the board and public. I'm Brian Paulson. I'm the district's general counsel, and I'm going to do the handoff here. So if we could go ahead and, as you all know, and I think most folks know, the district engages in active legislative advocacy, and we have done so for the better part of the last 20 years. The district has relied upon an outside lobbyist to assist us in that regard, and that's Bob Reeb from Reeb Government Relations. So Bob is here to present the 2025 annual legislative report. This is to report on the district's successes and challenges associated with legislation now that the legislative cycle has ended and we're getting ready to start a new legislative cycle. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Bob Reeb, and then, of course, if you have any questions, he and I would be happy to respond. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. I want to just walk through kind of what we looked at this year, some of the legislation, some of the bigger issues, and then look ahead to next calendar year when the legislature returns to session on January 5th of 2026. So this year, looking at the state budget, we continue as a state to deal with, I'd say, pernicious budget deficits. And there are multiple causations for that deficit. This year, the governor proposed a $321 billion deficit. And I will note during the recession that the United States suffered in the financial crisis back in 2008, 2010 timeframe, the state budget was $103 billion. So we've seen significant growth in both revenues and expenditures over the last 15 to 17 years. The budget this year was balanced utilizing the budget stabilization account, about $11 billion. It's been put into savings for economic uncertainties and times when the revenues don't meet projections. There are remaining reserves in the $7 to $10 billion range. The key piece there is, however, that both the Department of Finance, which is in the executive branch, and the Legislative Analyst's Office and the legislature are projecting between $10 and $20 billion annual deficits over the next several fiscal years. This would be through fiscal year 28-29. California really relies on a small percentage of taxpayers, and the amount of taxes they pay rely significantly on capital gains revenue, which is when the stock market does well and citizens and residents sell those stocks to realize those gains and the state benefits from that sort of period. Of course, the opposite true. When the stock market goes down or there's a recession, both the personal income tax, which is about 50% of state revenues, and those capital gains revenues can drop precipitously. One of our areas of focus, well, two areas of focus, I'll talk about the second in the next slide, is the Healthy Rivers and Landscapes funding. The district participates through the Regional Water Authority and water districts throughout California to support the Healthy Rivers and Landscapes alternative in the Bay Delta Water Quality Control Plan. And here with this Water Quality Control Plan, which we hope to see phase 2 come to a close by fall of next year, this time next year, there is the unimpaired flows alternative and the Healthy Rivers and Landscape alternative. And the district and others have been working, mostly the lawyers, have been working diligently over the last 8 years to ensure that there's a couple of options available for water systems. This district is choosing to support the Healthy Rivers and Landscapes. There has been funding in the state budget to move that forward ahead of the finalization of phase 2 in the Bay Delta Water Quality Control Plan. The notion here is that if we invest in habitat restoration, increased environmental water flows that are not just released to release it, but are timed to benefit endangered species and threatened species and water quality purposes. So the governor recommended in his budget in January of this year that $351 million that was previously appropriated be maintained for Healthy Rivers and Landscapes projects. The legislature zeroed that out in its budget in June that it approved. And so we went to bat during the year, but also after that with the legislature to try and reverse that. The governor was very strong in supporting keeping that money in the budget, and we were ultimately successful in keeping that $351 million available for HRL funding for projects. The second piece that we worked on significantly in the state budget this year was Proposition 4 appropriations. To remind you and the public, Proposition 4 was the climate resilience bond that the legislature put on the ballot in November of last year that voters approved. And it provides $10 billion for a wide range of projects and programs. From in the water arena, there's funding for desalination, for agriculture and urban water conservation, for increased support for the water storage investment program. One example that would be Sites Reservoir, which you may have heard about up here in Maxwell, California, Northern California. And a lot of the other programs that would generally support the environment. Unfortunately, as part of that new funding, the governor and the legislature reverted prior commitments from general fund for programs. And one of the most significant ones in terms of water resources was the reversion of over $100 million for water recycling projects. So what the right hand voters giveth, the left hand kind of took away a little bit. So the net effect is that we will see new funding through Proposition 4. It will be rolled out generally over the next 4 to 5 fiscal years. The governor recommended a $2.7 billion of expenditures for this current fiscal year. The legislature rejected that in its budget in June. But the two sides got together and they came together on a $3.2 billion fiscal year 2025-26 expenditure program. The key area for EID is that we've been working on this dam safety and climate resilience program for probably 5 years now. Initially, the governor put the program authorization in statute in a budget trailer bill that we worked on and supported. We then argued for and lobbied for general fund money, $100 million we received that subsequently was reverted back to the general fund, but it got us, positioned us well to advocate in Proposition 4 for significant money. And in fact, Prop 4 included $480 million for the dam safety program. There's probably a need statewide that's been identified in the $2.4 to $2.5 billion range. So this funding in Prop 4 is significant. This, of course, we are hoping, and the district has applied already for a $25 million grant for this program for the Silver Lake Dam replacement. It would be 50% of the cost that would otherwise be borne by district ratepayers. So this
Today's price.
today's price. That's right. Today's price. This is something that we've been working on for a number of years. We're very hopeful that the district will prevail. On Proposition 4, there's a little bit of a hiccup here in that Prop 4 required guidelines and regulations adopted to dole the money out to comply with the Administrative Procedures Act. And in doing so, it could result in a 12 to 18-month delay in getting any Prop 4 money appropriated. Now, the Dam Safety and Climate Resilience Program, we foresaw that being a potential issue into the future, and we have language in that program that allows the department to develop guidelines without having to go through the APA. So we're engaged in conversations with the Newsom administration as to whether they can use Prop 4 money, which is somewhat restricted to the APA, under the statutory program that says you don't have to go through the APA. There's a lot of conversations between groups like the Association of California Water Agencies and other interests to try and focus in on getting this money out sooner than later. And so that will be an effort that we already undertook this year, and we're not successful in getting a complete exemption, but those conversations are ongoing, and we hope that our goal is to see a budget trailer bill released by the governor in January of 2026 that will address that concern. But if not, it's something we'll continue to work on.
Forgive me for the interruption. I just wanted to make sure, the board members probably know, but for the public benefit, the APA that Bob referenced is the Administrative Procedures Act. That is the law that requires regulatory agencies to engage in a lengthy process of notice and an opportunity to comment before they adopt regulations. So the APA that Bob referenced is that, and it could lengthen the timeline required for to be able to dole out the funding under Prop 4.
Great. So part of the main part of the annual report looks at the legislation and what happened based on positions that we work on that the board approved in March of this year. And once you tell us, oppose this, support that, get this amendment, we go to work. And so it's important for me, representing public agencies, that there's accountability on our part to say what we succeeded in, what we failed to achieve, and kind of what the challenges that we continue to engage with the legislature. I'm not going to go through all of these point by point, but just highlight some of the key things. And if you have any questions, just jump right in, because I don't want to shortchange the, yes.
I've been noticing a lot, especially up in the Northern California area, where the climate resilience funding is already working, I think, from what I've seen. Maybe it's not our purview, but it is throughout the northern part of California on removing these small dams. And the significance was the salmon are coming up to areas that haven't been there for 35 years. So,
Or longer.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the Klamath River, of course.
And that's
is
all part, some of this is all part of that result.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll give you one example of just, I don't know if you've heard of Cutting the Green Tape Initiative. It's an initiative that was undertaken by Wade Crowfoot, the Resources Secretary,
Right.
and Governor Newsom. They're to try and move restoration projects more quickly, because a lot of times, in all cases, a restoration project is just like building a dam. You have to go through CEQA and NEPA and all the permits from the Fish and Wildlife and what have you. So the administration was trying to cut the green tape with respect to these projects. I was involved with one of our clients, Solano County Water Agency. There's a diversion structure to support the Yolo Bypass wildlife area and agriculture near the Yolo Bypass. It's a cement structure that they put wooden gates in to block the water so it can flow into these two areas. But it was blocking salmon return into Lower Pewter Creek, fall run salmon. So we've been working on that with the agency for about 5 years now. It finally took me getting a sit down with Charles Bonham, the Director of Fish and Wildlife. And all we were trying to do is put a ladder structure that could be put in and taken out. And the agency went ahead and built it with its own dime. We went to the director and said, we're losing fish because they're getting stranded down here with low oxygen. And so within 30 days, we got approval for that, and it's a good project. There's 2 more projects to deal with: a salmon migration, both downstream and upstream. In fact, the Wildlife Conservation Board later this month has a $1.1 million grant for the agency to look at designing a workaround for what's basically a dam, which is a road in Yolo County. It's a real problem for fish. So yes, that's very important. So I think the key part here is the Brown Act requirements. SB 707 will extend your authority to have remote participation and teleconference meetings like today's meeting through January of 2030. That was the key piece of that bill with respect to EID. We do see a lot of public employment legislation each year. And some of them would create burdens upon the public employer. So there's 4 bills that we discuss in here that we were largely successful in either amending, like AB 339, which would have initially required a 120-day notice to the Employees Association whenever you're going to enter into a contract, to bring in outside consultants or what have you. That we've got exceptions in there for construction contracts, for emergencies, for professional services contracts that were outside the scope of employment for your current employees, and the notice period was reduced to 45 days. So that bill was signed into law, but we did secure a number of key amendments. One of the things it's been going on, I think I've reported on now for maybe 10 years, is the Low-Income Water Rate Assistance Program, an effort by both Aqua and the water systems, but also those who represent environmental justice and social justice purposes, have been trying to work together to establish a program. Again, this year, we had SB 350 by Senator Elena Dorado from Los Angeles, and AB 532, which was California Municipal Utilities Association attempt to authorize voluntary participation by water systems and municipalities. Neither made it. Probably there's a couple of challenges here. One is the proposals to date have been very complex. Lots of requirements for water districts, a state water board, and it's just so darn detailed that SB 350, for example, the water rate assistance would be about $20 per month for eligible households. It would cost about $600 million per year to provide that benefit, but more importantly for water districts, it would cost about $300 million a year to administer at the state and local level. So it's not a very efficient, resource allocation there. Aqua, their state legislative committee last Friday directed their low-income water rate assistance working group, which I'm on, probably 10 working groups that I participate on behalf of the district, to take another look at it. But clearly, funding is going to be a challenge. I've suggested in the past that it be much more efficient just to increase the earned income tax credit so that it's not really has zero administrative costs, but it could provide benefits to low-income households. The challenge there is it's not directly tied to your water bill. But then a lot of those low-income households don't pay a water bill. It's part of their rent, and the property owner pays that water bill. So you can, I mean, I could go on forever, but it's a very tough issue to tackle, so one that will continue on. I think the positive probably to take away this year is on the negotiations on SB 350, the Community Water Center down in Visalia, which is a very established social justice nonprofit, and Aqua and CMUA really worked very closely together this year as compared in the past where it was a little more, knocking heads. Yes.
And if I could just a follow-on comment on that proposal, as Bob said, the Aqua State Legislative Committee voted unanimously, as I recall, to actually initiate a bill, potentially sponsor a bill on low-income housing rate assistance along the lines after the work group that Bob participates in kind of, continues their work to get the right language in the bill. The point of that is to demonstrate that the water agencies, and by the way, I should mention that this proposal was sponsored by the Region 3 board, which the general manager sits on. The point is to demonstrate that water agencies are, as much as anyone, interested in providing the kind of low-income water rate assistance program that that the advocates that have been introducing these bills have sought after. We are, as you all know, and heavily restricted on how we can use ratepayer funding, and it can't be used to subsidize. And that's been the real crux here. But water agencies want to be at the table. They want to be part of the solution for this, and not just the opposition to the bills as they're introduced. So,
Yeah, I mean, just to share a little bit of my personal outlook on this is I try and focus at the same time there's discussion about this low-income water rate assistance is on the other hand, which is the costs in California that are driving you to have to increase rates year after year after year. Now, replacing infrastructure, we all understand, but we have electricity rates, which is probably up to 20% of your budget, which just keep going up and up and up. We have new regulations every year that require you to do multiple things that may or may not be necessary. So we want to, when we're looking at the low-income water rate assistance program, I view it, I think accurately as a entitlement program where we're shifting, it's a redistribution of wealth, if you will, to low-income households, but is it really solving the problem in the long term? If we're doing $20 a month and the bill goes to 60 to 80 to 100, we're not trying to control the cost of water. So we're bringing that message to the legislators. At the same time, we're asking to assist the low-income households.
So I read that section of the board packet, with interest, and recognizing how complex it is. I'm just curious, and if anyone has an idea in the district, what percentage of our ratepayers would fall under a potential low-income, rate? Any idea?
Unfortunately not, but I can go back and see if we could do some research to figure that out.
It would just be interesting to see, how much of our ratepayers would fall under that, that umbrella, and, because we look at it in the larger and in the abstract, but what does it mean to us here? So, but I look forward to seeing if we come up with a simple and more viable for the people who are the most vulnerable. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may, one thing that may inform that, we did a low-income assistance for sewer customers a while back. I presume we're still doing it. Maybe in the first quarter, we could have a report of how it's being used and how many people are on it and that sort of thing, and that might help inform some of this.
Yeah, I kind of remember asking that same question about 4 years ago. And it's been a while, but I know that it is in our budget. It doesn't say how many. And I think the other part of this whole grand discussion is it can change as of tomorrow. Because we have a lot of people who pay the lower price based on their income, but the income thing is changing daily. So, we can put a number on it, but we probably can't define it as actual.
If I could just follow on that, and just to be clear, the bill that we're talking about is for water customers only, so it wouldn't apply to wastewater. But to Director Penn's question about qualifying as low income, I suspect that the El Dorado County median household income is quite high. So if you look at it from a county level, it's probably going to obscure the need somewhat, because particularly in the eastern part of the county, there is likely quite a need. We know from, for example, our credit ratings that the median household income is quite high, and that has benefited in us in some way, at least as the credit rating agencies have reviewed our credit worthiness. But as I said, and so at a macro level, you probably wouldn't be able to identify what the actual need is, but there very clearly is a need for this kind of assistance in parts of the district.
Our page says offers up to 1,500 income eligible customers who are currently in the discounted rate through PG&E Cares. So it's that.
Yeah, looking at the Energy Cares data from Pacific Gas and Electric and the CPUC is probably the easiest way to get a picture of what your West Slope population looks
Right.
like. Because the SB 350 and bills before that would have established the income or the eligibility as 200% federal poverty level, which this year is about $60,000 per year for a family of four. And that's modeled exactly after the Energy Cares program, so they're going to look fairly close. Let's go ahead and jump to the next slide. So I think what I'll focus on here is the top bill, AB 1075. This is a bill that was sponsored by the California Professional Firefighters Association, and it would have required privately contracted fire prevention resources to first get approval from the incident commander to enter into evacuation areas to provide these services. Some folks have this through their homeowner's insurance, where they come and spray gel on your house so it doesn't burn down, in theory. Others actually have, fire trucks that are private that hook up to the fire hydrants and are there standing by to fight a wildfire. When I looked at this bill, I had two concerns. Number one, there was absolutely no requirement for backflow prevention devices for these trucks of whatever kind or shape would hook up to your system. Also, there's no really notification to the water system because you don't want people just kind of, screwing on to attach to the fire hydrant and ruining the threads and what have you. So I alerted district staff to my concerns. We prepared language to get amendments to the bill. I engaged the authors, staff, and the lobbyists for the California Professional Firefighters. We were able to secure both amendments. One that requires all the private fire vehicles to have backflow protection devices, prevention devices, and two, that your authority to operate and maintain the public water system is not diminished by this authority given to the incident commander. So we were the only district in California to identify that issue and to get it resolved in this bill. Aqua didn't take an interest, CMUA didn't take an interest, so an example of, the benefit of having representation down there. Probably the water theft, fire hydrant bill, that increases fines and gives greater authority for water districts and municipalities to adopt their own ordinance to protect their system from water theft, which in some cases, again, can have a significant financial impact on the district. And then finally, this construction manager, general contractor, project delivery expanded the type of projects and to all local agencies that could utilize this authority. This might be one project delivery method that the district explores for Silver Lake Dam replacement project. So we supported this bill to give that option to you. This project delivery approach has been shown to reduce the time to bring a project to construction and completion, and to result in reduced costs.
Is that what you call design-build approach?
It is a type of design-build hybrid where it allows you to have that contractor, like an engineering firm, to design it, do the procurement, and do the construction. So it kind of cuts out a couple of steps in that, bringing that project to fruition. Let me just say, going into next year, that we're looking at, again, Proposition 4, both in terms of the second fiscal year of funding allocations and appropriations, and to address that Administrative Procedures Act guidelines concern. We're also looking, working with others on potential legislation to shorten the timeline for the state board to get to approval of the Phase 2 Badal to Water Quality Control Plan process. And that effort is designed or intended to protect the Healthy Rivers and Landscapes alternative, because Governor Newsom is leaving office in January of 2027. We don't have it wrapped up by then. We don't know what the potential delay or impact of that will be. We're also going to be sponsoring legislation. El Dorado Irrigation District has been working through General Manager Pulse and myself, and we've got legislation.
Council, just yeah.
General Manager, oh, you're not.
Haven't been promoted.
You keep talking about that with me, but. General Counsel, I beg your pardon. And on the Surplus Lands Act, to make it easier for rural agencies to sell surplus land where there is absolutely no possibility that affordable housing can be constructed therein or thereon. Yeah, so it's going to be a busy year going into next year. Elections, of course. All state constitutional officers are up for election. Here locally, Senator Alvarado Gill will be on the ballot, as will both assembly members that represent El Dorado County East and West. So happy to answer any questions.
Really quickly, I have an update related to the question you posed. So the district has just under 500 customers participating in the wastewater low-income assistance program at this point in time.
And none in the water.
We don't have one.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Where you can see what the state's going to do, we go back and forth.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Bob?
No, it was an extensive package.
Thank you for keeping your ear to the ground and keeping us informed and advocating for our position.
You're welcome.
If I could, I don't know if this is acceptable, but in our response to the grand jury report, which I saw you were looking at intently, any thoughts? Are other districts going through similar things? And our response, you know, again, I don't know if this is appropriate, but since you deal with so many different organizations, similar organizations, are we going through similar things? And was our response, you know, appropriate? I was just curious.
Yes, we represent water districts up and down California, both agricultural and urban and suburban. They are all dealing with the same things, technology and updating technology to be more efficient and be able to track money and what have you, like was in the grand jury report. They're also struggling with infrastructure replacement. Desert Water Agency, which is down in Palm Springs. We didn't talk about making water conservation a way of life and the impact that will have on this district, and that's where you're trying to get down to your urban water use target over time. Well, that's going to strand a lot of investments in water supply that have already been incurred. Desert Water Agency has to achieve a 42% reduction by 2040. And they've already reduced their per capita water use by about 50%. So you can imagine if they're selling 42% less water, what does that look like in terms of water rates and covering fixed costs and what have you? So there's a big struggle on replacing infrastructure. They've been increasing their pipeline replacement. They were spending about $1 million a decade ago. When I saw their board report where they were tracking for their board what projects they were doing and the average age of their pipeline system and after the $1 million investment. So the average age of their distribution system pipes is about 68 years. With 1 million a year, it dropped down to 67.8 years. And so they increased to 3 million, which had an impact on their rates. And now, because of this making water conservation a way of life, they're looking at bumping that up to 5 million a year. And through that process, they'll get down to about 50-year average pipeline rate. But it's expensive to maintain and operate a water system. And
The gated communities, lawn strangulation regulation?
the what?
The gated community, the
Oh.
lawn strangulation?
I don't, so
This is Palm Desert, right? Palm Springs,
yeah.
who everybody has a swimming pool. Okay.
Yeah, they do, and golf courses that are largely in the Desert Water Agency, they're all on recycled water.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of median strips and verges that are, still have natural turf. And there are a lot of homeowners associations down there. That development is really concentrated. And so there's legislation that passed a couple years ago to prohibit potable water to be applied for non-functional turf. That's going to impact those HOAs significantly. But I just got a call from Desert Water Agency that the city of Palm Springs has a historic preservation ordinance that prohibits changing the landscape. And so their question to me was, well, what do we do? And I said, well, the state law likely will carry on that, but we're going to take a look at that. I'm sure it's an issue for other areas of the state too, but yeah, just interesting. But no, you're not alone. I attend board meetings like this up and down California, and it's the same conversation.
At least your commute is shorter here. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Any public comment on this presentation?
If members of the public would like to address the board on information item number 10, please refer to the instructions in today's agenda. President Dwyer, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on information item number 10. I believe we could move on to action item number 12.
Thank you very much for the hint. Yes.
Suggest a 5-minute break, stretch our legs.
Certainly. Let's break for 5 and come back with our CIP.
For everyone on the meeting, we're just going to take a 5-minute break. So we will mute the cameras here and be back not before 10:23. So just stand by, please.
Okay, Mr. Money. bring
Okay,
us
we'll
money.
proceed to action item number 12, the approval of the CIP after we put Penny on ice for like ice in the kicker.
So we'll move back to workshop item number 11 once we move through action item number 12. Just so the members of the public that are participating online.
Okay, good morning. John Money, Director of Engineering for the district, and this morning I'll be presenting the 2026 to 2030 capital improvement plan for the board's consideration and potential adoption. Previous board items related to today's action. In October of last year, the current 2025 to 2029 CIP was adopted by the board. And at our last board meeting on October 27th, we held a workshop to review the draft 2026 to 2030 capital improvement plan. So the district's capital improvement plan, or CIP, not to be confused again with capital improvement projects, serves to prioritize and schedule and budget for capital improvement projects over the next or upcoming 5-year period. Each year, staff prepares and the board reviews and then adopts the CIP as part of the overall budget process. It's incorporated both into the budget workshop, which will be heard as our next item, and then final adoption, which will be held at the board's December board meeting. It's important to note that due to current funding limitations, this year's plan focuses on the most urgent asset replacements, health and safety improvements, and required regulatory compliance projects. In full disclosure, we did also include one minor change from the workshop, and that was the addition of a $50,000 allocation to the tank and reservoir master plan. During a recent workshop with our design consultant, we identified an additional need to inspect our wastewater equalization tanks at our 2 wastewater treatment plants. So those funds will be applied this upcoming fall as rates or as wastewater flows decline again, so that we can get in there and take a look at those tanks. So on this slide is a summary of our proposed 5-year CIP. So the capital improvement plan is separated into 7 general categories. The first is dedicated to our Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, requirements for our Project 184 permit or license. The next 4 categories include water, wastewater, recycled water, and hydro operations. And for each operation category, the included is the capital improvement projects or programs. So for that operational fund. So for instance, for water, it's everything from water treatment plants to transmission pipelines, storage facilities, pump stations, and the numerous components of our distribution systems. Following those 4 categories is our recreation. So that includes our maintenance and upkeep projects for our mandated recreation facilities at Sly Park, Forebay, and Silver and Caples Lake. And then last but not least is the general district projects. These are projects that support the district overall, include improvements to our upper corporation yard, fleet updates, IT or information technology improvements, SCADA, and as we noted earlier, the update of our enterprise resource planning or ERM system for fiscal planning for the district. Together, these 7 categories provide a comprehensive overview of where the district is focusing its capital investment over the next 5 years, and for the current plan totals approximately $360 million. In total, the CIP includes over 150 projects or programs, and a few of those major projects we will discuss on the next few slides. So starting off with our Silver Lake Dam replacement. This dam, again, was originally constructed in 1876, so it's approaching its 150-year anniversary. And it still includes timbers from that original construction period. Due to the dam's age and its original construction materials, both FERC and the California Division of Safety of Dams, or DSOD, have required the replacement of this dam. The design of this project has been underway and is now past the 60% design review milestones. During this upcoming year, we plan to move forward with both CEQA and NEPA permitting process, as well as beginning a FERC license modification. Staff anticipates to reach the 100% design milestone likely the summer of this upcoming year, and construction is expected to occur currently in 2029 for a total construction cost of just under $49 million. Due to the, I should mention, just due to the remote nature of this project, we are anticipating a 2-year construction window. And the last clarification on this project is that, again, funding has not yet been identified and committed for this and our, on the next slide, our El Dorado Hills water treatment plant replacement program. So the largest project included on the CIP is our El Dorado Hills water treatment plant replacement project. This project is approaching a 60% level of design, with final design expected in the fall of 2026. This project will largely replace the existing 19.5 MGD, or million gallons a day facility, with a proposed 24 MGD facility shown on these slides. Construction is expected to be complete over a 4 to 5 year window beginning in 2028. And I wanted to mention that, so following the district's water treatment asset management plan and the district's water master plan, both the El Dorado Hills water treatment plant and Reservoir One were basically weighted equally for replacement, or priority for replacement, due to their age, condition, and capacity limitation. So while we are moving forward with the El Dorado Hills plant, we also have significant expenditures that are going on for ongoing maintenance of the Reservoir One facility. And likely sometime after 2030, there will be another project proposed for replacement of the Reservoir One facility as well. Staff will continue to pursue debt funding, as well as potentially funding that project through the state revolving fund.
John, I have a question. For the water treatment plant project, if it's going to take 4 or 5 years, and I would understand why, we all toured it, and the complexity of keeping it running while replacing it is challenging. But I just wonder why we have all the funds showed in the 2028 year instead of spread out over the 4 or 5 years.
So we've updated our CIP to show funds as they are committed. So we will need that full funding amount identified and committed when we enter into the construction contract in 2028. So that's how we're showing it in our moving forward in the CIP. It's not necessarily a cash flow diagram of when we're expected to spend the funds, but when those funds are committed. And again, that avoids, so as this project runs out to 2031 or 2032, that's out and beyond that 5-year window, it more accurately reflects the cost commitments within the 5-year CIP.
So, John, the El Dorado Hills, we are mostly land constrained. Is that an accurate, and is there any way we could work on acquiring a little bit of the park next from the CSD? It just seemed it would open up a lot of more options to us.
So we are looking at options. I highly doubt it. People think that parks are cheap because it's just a lot of grass and maybe some parking lots, but parks are extremely expensive. And we will be reaching out to the parks. We will also be reaching out to see if we can have some extended laydown potentially with the middle school that's just south of the water treatment plant, and some of their medians that are directly abut our plant. I would be skeptical that the CSD would be willing to scrap that park and allow us to encroach into that area. Yeah, that would, I mean, it's nice to think, it's a nice value assessment, but parks are yes, sacred and expensive. In a previous position, I worked for the special districts for Sacramento County, and I was shocked at how much park facilities end up costing at the end of the day.
John, before you go on, can you kind of back up and walk us through what turned out to be a $100 million kind of surprise? Because when we originally looked at this treatment plant, we said, well, we need to make a few improvements and new kinds of filters, and we need a new clear well that'll have capacity. And how did we evolve from those approaches to where we are now with replace the whole thing? I know we have the consultant do the assessment, and they just came back and said our approach is not going to work.
No, I think we were overly optimistic. So what our design our consultant did for the assessments is they went through and assessed all the plants, all 5 of our plants. For this facility in particular, they kind of grouped it into nice to haves, need to haves. The need to haves end up kind of bleeding over into the next phases. So, for instance, the high-head pump station that actually distributes this water out into our distribution system, originally it was envisioned that we would wait until the next phase and to make those improvements. But that facility, again, is very dated. So we have pumps that are in risk of failure, and so the decision internally was made to make that that pump station part of that project. And that was the first change, and that was made about a year ago, probably right after we finalized the CIP. There's 2 other factors that come into that. Again, the other is that we are pulling that full project cost now back into the year that we anticipate to enter into that construction contract. The other is we're trying to do a better job. So what was represented previously was just the construction cost. So this 174 is our best estimate at our all-in cost. So that's full environmental, construction inspection, staff time, construction engineering services, or construction engineering services as we go through that full project. So all of that has elevated the cost. We've also added some additional chemical storage facilities to optimize the treatment options there. So as you get into that higher level of demand, we had identified all these facilities as replacements, but it's just more cost. The staff has made the determination that it's more cost effective to do it with the current phase rather than piecemealing it and being kind of crippled by some of those older processes that will still be in place if we don't move forward with them.
Okay, thank you, I guess.
All right, moving on to our wastewater side. Our largest project here is the Sterling Hills pipeline improvements. So this is the last leg of the mother lode force main that we've been working on for, I think, just over a decade at this point. This project includes approximately 2 miles of 20-inch pipe that will connect the termination of the mother lode force main that we completed last year to, which is right there at Duroc Road, to our to our Deer Creek trunk line that comes down through Cameron Estates. So this pipeline does convey wastewater all the way from the town of El Dorado to our Deer Creek wastewater treatment plant. And with this last leg of completion, we can operate our existing El Dorado lift station at a higher capacity, which will help us to minimize emergency storage in the adjacent storage ponds and we've had to truck on extreme extreme weather events. So, go ahead, next slide. Moving on to our recycled water, we don't often have a lot of recycled water projects, but this is kind of showing the age of our system. A good portion of our recycled water system is approaching that 20-year range. So the Bridlewood tank is actually 21 years, and it has not been coated since its initial construction. So staff is moving forward with the final bid document, or preparation of final bid documents for this project at a total expected construction cost of about $6.5 million. Because there is only a single tank at this location, the rehabilitation is expected to span 3 years. I think I mentioned during our previous workshop. So that is to replace the dome, coat the interior, and then the last year will be coating the exterior of the tank, and the project will be complete. This project has required extensive coordination with the State Water Board, Division of Drinking Water, because each time that we still have to maintain supply to the recycled water system. So as we take this tank offline, it's going to require quite a bit of potable water supplementation. And so making that connection with our drinking water system has been highly scrutinized and worked out in tandem with the cooperation from DDW. Go ahead, next slide. So getting on to outside of our major projects, I did want to again put an emphasis on the development of our ongoing programs. So next couple slides will implement or show what is included in the capital improvement plan for those programs. For instance, for drinking water, we have everything from our treatment plant assessments or our asset replacements. So that's for all 5 of our water treatment plants ongoing. Our tank and reservoir replacements, which include, I believe we have 38 reservoirs on the water side, pump station. So building out a full catalog of the assets in each of these programs and then projecting those replacement schedules is going to be a higher priority as we move forward. Currently, all of these programs are significantly underfunded. And so that's going to be our goal moving forward, is identifying the program, how much we should be spending, and then we can, on an annual basis, identify what that funding gap is and help to better project rates and convey that importance to the board and to our customers. Again, our wastewater treatment plant or wastewater programs include our treatment plant assessments, lift station replacements, pipeline replacements, or rehabilitation with cured-in-place pipe, and then asset replacements. That includes everything from generators to pressure sensors at our lift stations or flow monitors, throughout our wastewater system. Recycled water, again, we'll be moving on to additional tank replacements and rehabilitation. After the Bridlewood tank, we still have our Valley View tanks that need to be assessed and recoated. There are some recycled water pump stations as well. And then on the general district, you know, the biggest tag, or biggest line item there is our vehicle replacements. But that also, again, includes replacing our IT infrastructure, upgrading our the programs that we use to keep the district running on a daily basis. So we stuck this in multiple times, but again, we believe that the program funding is limited and constrained by our existing funding constraints. And examples of of what that kind of snowballs into are several instances of failures that we've had over the last few years. So that's everywhere from the mother lode force main, the initial emergency repairs had on that pipeline, the Marina Village repairs we had last year and the year before that, the Reservoir 1 cover that we're currently underway with, our pressure reducing stations. I mean, that list kind of goes on and on. The El Dorado Hills Boulevard water transmission main is on kind of its last leg, and it had some breaks there in front of the fire station. So again, moving with our current funding rates, we anticipate that those emergency replacements will continue to progress. And so we're looking to do a longer term program management to project out what level of funding we would need to start heading off some of those emergency replacements moving forward. So how do we do that? So work actually started on this a little over a year ago with the hiring or the initial funding of our asset management analyst position. We've had a little bit of a problem keeping that position consistently funded, in that we've gone through two of those, and our current asset management analyst, David Schiller, was recently promoted on an interim basis as our IT manager. So he's been kind of filling both shoes. But generally, what our vision for that is really working with both our operations and GIS staff to build out a full catalog of all of our assets, their age, their replacement schedules, and the replacement costs. And that allows us to project those cash flows, again, over that 30-year CIP period as we continue to move forward. And that will help us to identify those funding gaps, and also, as Director Day mentioned earlier, prevent those kind of rate shocks from our large projects as they hit in that range.
To ask a question. If I remember rightly, about 3 years ago, one of your employees wrote an asset management plan or a software product. Now, I may be incorrect, but as someone who used to do that, I know that there's plenty of software products out there, but I understand that if you do an asset management, it must be very easy to connect with the rest of your software plans, including the financial part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been several of those efforts. I think one of the more recent ones was probably our lift stations or pump station assessments. What we are really focused on is making sure that all of that information, we don't have separate efforts in a spreadsheet here or there, that all gets rolled up into our IPS platform. And that we are really working with our operations staff so that when they're going out and doing their work orders, that information is getting updated so that we have a current status of what those assets
Correct.
are.
That's the coordination between the work order programs and the asset, and then your financial.
Correct.
So I know it's convoluted to some people who don't know how software works, but I do understand it. And It is beneficial once everybody's trained in the way they do this. And it should be very easy to merge these items all in one place.
It should be, and that's why we've got to be consistent and make sure that we're working together with staff.
With
because-
work orders, and how about your purchasing? Do we have a purchasing agent? Yeah, so,
We do,
There you
and part of the new financial system, a key requirement is that ability, so
okay,
yes.
great.
And we've also we're working on developing that into our capital improvement projects, so that when we do a new facility like the El Dorado Hills Water Treatment Plant, part of the contractor submittal will be doing a full schedule of all of the products that they provided as part of that project in an electronic format that we can more easily import into that IPS program to keep that all renewed and refreshed. So overall, the current slide contains a comparison of the proposed 2026 to 2030 CIP, as well as the prior three CIPs. I again wanted to point out the large increases in funds in both 2028 and 2029 due to the El Dorado Hills and Silver Lake projects. And I also wanted to point out that both of those projects have significant funding gaps that we will continue to pursue commitments as we look at debt financing grants and FCCs to help bridge that gap. Go ahead, next slide. So how does that the current 5-year funding compare to our historical funding that's entailed on this slide? So overall, our average spending over that 5-year period creeps up to about $62 million, as opposed to our about $44 million over the previous 20 or so years. It is important to note that if you take those two larger projects out, which are in that lighter blue, our funding of the remaining capital improvement projects return back to that 2010 to 2017 range of funding. So we likely, again, that's another indicator that we aren't adequately funding our base level of projects throughout the district.
Yeah, John, I think when we had the workshop last time, we said, can you explore alternatives to get rid of some of the peaks in there and see if you can spread them out? Things that come to mind would be an extra storage someplace to take that 20 million to 24 million gap in production, and maybe, listen to me, push it out for a few years. What alternatives did you look at to compensate for those peaks and valleys?
So the CIP does also include transmission optimization program. We have been doing several modeling efforts. So if it comes to a point where these projects do need to be postponed or deferred, we are looking at options. Again, our general feeling is that things are going. We can continue to look at options. We can continue to look at deferrals, but things are going to continue to break as if we don't find a way to replace our major assets, including our water treatment plants and storage facilities.
Yeah, it's really a capacity problem in addition to an age problem. So anything that we could do to help shave that peak, I think last time we mentioned alternate watering days, because that peak occurs in the summer in the most demand, where our demands are the highest. Is there something we could do to shave that peak off, remain within capacity, buy us a little time to do something else? Because, this peak is gonna, as we're gonna hear in the next presentation, workshop, that peak, that funding peak is going to drive our debt service cost up by $10 million a year. $10 million divided by 45,000 customers, that's another $20 a month, or 18% on top of the 12% that we already had built in. Now we're 30% increase. And I think we should really work to find alternative approaches.
And we can continue to evaluate again, kind of contingency planning. Our concern is that if these plants really are approaching, you replace them usually you replace facilities for two reasons. One is capacity, and the other is for age and resiliency. And both of these plants have hit both of those thresholds. So we can push off and have, risk that capacity issue and ask people to water on different days and whatnot. But you're still really risking that resiliency and failure of the key asset. So if we have a significant failure at El Dorado Hills in the summer, it's not watering every other day. It's not watering, period. And that wouldn't only apply to El Dorado Hills. That would likely apply district-wide, because we would be relying on our existing transmission mains to get that water down the hill. So there's numerous things we would like to see, but really focusing on refreshing those assets so that they are reliable and they provide the capacity that we need moving forward.
And as you mentioned, we have an additional plant lurking beyond that horizon in the 2030 plus. And if you delay it too far, you may compound your issues and really strain staff resources.
We do, and the important, again, this is the snowball effect, because these are just our water treatment plants. We also have transmission pipelines and distribution lines, and so that's why building out this 30-year plan is so badly needed, is so that we can identify all of our assets and not just talk about ones and twos. We're talking about full programs and the full portfolio of district assets and how we replace those moving forward. So I did want to throw this slide in here as well, based on comments from the workshop. So this should look a little familiar. This is from our key performance indicators presentation earlier this year. And it presents the increase in our number of services since 2000, along with the number of employees the district has employed over that same period. So it's a little bit different timeline. The previous slide started in 2008 and then goes out a little bit before. But specifically, total services throughout the district have increased by about 12,000 or about 20%. From 2008 to 2024. So that's that time range in that previous slide. So whereas we see that flat funding on a kind of what I would say is our base level across, similar to our number of employees that the district has employed, those have stayed pretty flat. That number of services has continued to trend up. And again, that's another need that we need to continue to evaluate as we move forward.
I know this is one of the performance indicators that we use, and as a district, we're well below the industry standard in terms of having few employees to service a lot of customers. So I think that's a testimony to the management of the district in saying we're lean and mean, and so we're trying to save money wherever we can. But these impending tsunami of repairs that we have to do is pushing us in a different direction.
Yeah, I would agree. And again, that's why we want that longer term, 30 years, so that we can avoid kind of that short-sightedness for other trade-offs. So moving on to the financing of the proposed CIP, again, it's the CIP is going to come in is planned for about $360 million in expenditures over the next 5 years, funded through a mixed debt funding for our two larger projects, annual revenue which will be received as or used as pay-as-you-go projects. That's more of our base load projects. We will continue to evaluate using facility capacity charges or FCCs to help offset any improvements to our systems. And then, again, we've been very successful. However, it's not going to fund the district on other funding mechanisms. So we will continue to evaluate Prop 4 funding, as Mr. Reeb alluded to earlier. We're looking at state revolving funds for some of our larger improvement projects. We'll continue to evaluate FEMA hazard mitigation grants and other grants, for instance, for the Water Smart grants from the USBR. And where we've been successful on that, again, projects that are already included in the CIP, such as the Sly Park boat launching facility, our Flume 48 and Flume 45 replacement. So we are still pursuing on a kind of Hail Mary additional HMGP grant funding for Flume 45 Section 3. That was previously that was funded under the BRIC project that was canceled by the current administration. We have a application for Ponca Pines Reservoir replacement. We have an application in, but we expect that to be revised for the Silver Lake Dam, and then our various vegetation management activities throughout the district. So as far as next steps, the costs that have been presented today will be rolled up and presented into the budget and financial plan workshop, which will be immediately following this item, and then followed by the budget and financial plan adoption during our December board meeting. Also, as we look at how we can address those long-term costs and funding gaps, we are intending to enter into a cost of service study, likely later on in this upcoming 2026 year. So as far as options, we are asking the board to adopt the 2026 to 2030 capital improvement plan, subject to available funding, as option one. Staff's recommendation is option one moving forward.
I'll move option one, and if I can make a comment. I want to concur with Director Dwyer's concerns and comments on these costs getting higher and higher, and whatever we can do while we're still in design phase to find ways to trim and shave, because whether it's modularity, I don't know if that's actually a word, but so you can plug in sections at a time and they connect then with the new, and a way of doing it all, but doing it over, spreading it out a little bit. We're just trying to think outside the box, and encouraging you guys too as well, because it is going to have a huge, huge impact on us and on our ratepayers.
Yeah, again, and we absolutely do that, and we do that on a consistent basis. Where we run the risk of is, for instance, the Res 1 floating cover. Ideally, we would have planned and we would be replacing that facility with 2 new tanks, which would facilitate the long-term build-out of that facility. Instead, we're spending $2 million over the next couple months just as an emergency replacement of that facility. So that doesn't get us to our end goal, and that's what we want to also try to avoid. So we want to be strategic, just as you said. Look how we can piece parts together and optimize our system, but also we want to make sure that we take a step back and we're not using, for all intents and purposes, kind of throwaway cost as we go back and we make improvements at a facility and then have to turn around and rebuild that facility a few years later.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Day, for the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Anzini. Any other board comments on the capital improvement plan? Is there any public comment on the capital improvement plan?
If members of the public would like to address the board on action item number 12, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. President Dwyer, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on action item number 12. Option 1 moved by Director Day and seconded by Director Anzini. I believe we're ready for the vote.
Yes, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 voting unanimously. And I believe we're now ready to move back to workshop item number 11.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll move on to the budget. Operating budget.
Good morning, President Dwyer, members of the board. My name is Penny Beckman. I am the finance director for the district. Today, we will have the annual 2025 and 26 mid-cycle operating and capital budgets, as well as the 26 to 30 financial plan workshop. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that developing the budget is truly a collaborative effort. It's not completed by the finance department alone, but through a partnership with all of the departments and the board. I want to sincerely thank the departments for providing their budget materials so promptly. I know that we faced very challenging deadlines this year, and I appreciate their responsiveness and their support. I also want to recognize the outstanding contributions of Madison Franklin. Her determination and expertise was instrumental in preparing the district's budget, and we could not have accomplished it without her. Okay, so for prior board actions and discussion items, we had on March 20th, 2000, the board adopted a multi-year operating budget process. December 11th, 2023, the board accepted the cost of service analysis and approved changes to rates per the 2023 Prop 218 notice. And then on November 12th, 2024, the board adopted the 25-26 operating budget and the 25 to 29 financial plan. And October 27th, 2025, the CIP 26 to 30 capital plan was via a workshop. And then it was adopted today, I guess. So the board adopts a 2-year budget and conducts a mid-cycle review per board policy 3010. Staff has prepared projected operating revenues and expenditures. We've updated the 5-year plan, and we'll be recommending process changes today. The input provided today will be incorporated into the proposed budget and prepared for the board's consideration at the public hearing scheduled for next month on December 8th. Today's workshop agenda will include the 25 and 26 revenues and expenditures, the proposed adoption of the CIP budget, 5-year financial plans, reserve balances, the debt service, and our next steps. All of the budget slides today will show the 2025 budget, the 25 year-end projections, the 26 proposed budget, and the variance between the most recent 25 year-end projections and the 26 proposed budget. The 25 revenues are showing an overall increase of approximately $8.5 million, higher than budget, and I will go into those details on the next slide. The 2026 proposed budget includes the 12% rate increase for water and a 3% rate increase for wastewater and recycled water. That was included in the 2023 cost of service and the issued Prop 218 notice. Finance also factored in a 0.62% growth factor based on the approved residential growth rate of El Dorado County. With the rate increases and the projected growth factor, water sales are anticipated to increase by $6.6 million. Wastewater sales and services, recycled water sales, a combined $1 million. And that's from the 2025 year-end projections. The budget also includes increased grants revenue of $2.3 million for uncollected revenues in '25, which are offset by district expenses. Our 2025 revenue highlights include the $8.5 million higher than the 2025 adopted budget. This includes increased investment income of $2.3 million, primarily related to the 2024 A bonds and changes to the district's investment policy. There is a FEMA reimbursement of $2.2 million for expenses related to the 2023 storms that was received, and then generator projects primarily funded by the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. These types of reimbursements are considered revenue, but I do want to just make sure that everybody knows they have offsetting expenses immediately. The anticipated increase of facility capacity charges of approximately $5.9 million is due to increased development in 2025. There are small variances totaling $1.6 million in water, wastewater, recycled water, and hydropower cells, debt surcharges, property taxes, and recreation. And finally, there were a few categories that had decreased revenues. Other income of $1.2 million due to lower insurance reimbursements dependent on outstanding claims, and a reduction in vehicle sales following a large inventory cleanup from prior year. Also, as mentioned, grant revenue decreased by $2.3 million that will be collected in 2026. This table includes the 25 year-end and the 2026 proposed operating by major expense category, the CIP, and debt service expenditures. It includes both restricted and unrestricted funding sources. The revenue and expense tables show an overall overall expenses that are exceeding revenues. But this is due to the fund balance from FCCs and from which are eligible for debt service and CIPs, and the 2024 A bonds for eligible projects. The CIP 25 columns in orange are for information only. They are not calculated as a variance since the CIP was not adopted as part of the 25 budget. Staff is proposing that the board adopt the first year budget for the CIP. Those details will be provided later in the presentation. The overall 2025 budgeted operating expenses show a projected reduction of $4.6 million. The proposed 2026 budget shows an overall increase of $10.1 million. That should be 10.4. I will explain the variance on another slide. The proposed budget complies with Board Policy 3010 and Administrative Regulation 2015 for the financial control test. That is where our revenues minus our FCCs should exceed our operating and debt service expenses. So that is apparent here. It's the CIP that causes it to go over. We will be reviewing the details of the expenses on the next two slides. As shown on the previous table, the 2025 year-end projections are lower than budget by $4.6 million. This includes wages and benefits of $1.6 million due primarily to vacancies. There's $3.8 million in savings in materials and services and labor offsets from projects and reimbursements from development. There is also an offsetting increase for expenses of approximately $800,000 for repairs and services, insurance premiums, and capital outlay. As shown on the expenditures table, for the proposed 2026 personnel budget, there will be an increase by approximately $4.8 million, primarily due to cost of living increases and changes to benefits. Gross wages will increase about $2 million, and benefits will increase by $3.1 million. Total wages for 2026 includes a 3% cost of living adjustment that was previously negotiated with recognized employee organizations. There is also an increase in capitalized labor and developer reimbursements. Those are offset, so it decreases the budget by $300,000. It also includes 4 new treatment plant operators and training positions for approximately $500,000 annually. 2 of the positions were included in wages, and the other 2 are included in the line titled Operator and Training Positions. Unfortunately, these positions were added late in the process by finance, and the table was not updated. So it should read and reflect 10.4. and will be corrected for the December 8th meeting. I will provide the position details after I finish the expenses. Compared to 2025 year-end projections, the 26 proposed material services budget is increasing 5.3 million. Using historical data comparisons and average conditions, chemicals increased 300,000, and operating supplies increased 1.4 million, primarily due to an increase in general operating supplies, fuel, and repair and maintenance supplies. Administration expenses are increasing by 900,000 due to an increase in miscellaneous administrative costs, including the cost of internet services, software licenses, and dues and subscriptions. Utilities increased a little over 900,000 due to increased usage. Staff mistakenly left the reference to rate increases in the agenda report from 2025. There are no scheduled increases in 26. It will also be corrected before the December 8th board meeting. Professional services increased by 1.7 million due to contractual services, legal fees, and engineering services. There was minimal changes to repair services, insurance, capital outlay, and contingency, with a combined increase of 100,000 from the 25 year-end projections, for a total increase of 10.4 million. Back to the positions. 2 positions will support the wastewater division, 1 each at the El Dorado Hills and Deer Creek wastewater treatment plants. The other 2 positions will support the drinking water division, 1 at Reservoir 1 and 1 at Reservoir A water treatment plants. The need for skilled personnel has reached a critical point due to statewide shortage of operators qualified to meet state mandatory certification requirements. In response to this ongoing need, our district's Operations and Maintenance Department is proposing 4 operators in training positions to develop licensed operators internally that will meet the district's future facility operating obligations. Establishing these positions will enable the district to cultivate a pipeline of certified operators through an in-house training program addressing dual challenges of immediate workforce needs and the long-term sustainability of operational capabilities. An in-house training program will expedite the certification path and enhance the knowledge and skills specific to the district. The program, yes, go ahead.
Can I, Penny? You know, I applaud the effort to create the training program and in this critical shortage skill. I'm concerned that we'll train these people up, get them certified, and lose them. And Dan, what are we going to do to keep them?
Bonuses.
Yeah, I think this is a challenge that every agency faces.
Right.
This is a pathway to ensure that we have a pipeline, and I think over time we're going to have to work on salaries as well. But this is a good starting point, and salaries in the future will make us more competitive, so hopefully people don't leave us to go elsewhere. But this is a struggle that everybody has. I know the previous agency I worked with was considered a training ground for everybody else. And so there's no way getting around that except to work towards doing this and then over time trying to address salary. But I think the district also has additional benefits for staff here that isn't necessarily the same in other agencies. So that's something we have to make sure that we advertise appropriately when we're trying to recruit people, and making sure that our operators in training are fully aware of what those benefits are. So when they're looking at other places, they're not ignoring those benefits.
We need to continue to make this a good place to work.
Yes.
So there are places that are offering signing bonuses too. So it seems like that's.
Very aware of that. However, firsthand experience doesn't always work. So.
I think that's one of the main things I appreciate about Gentleman Vandiar is the ability to think ahead and where our critical path is going to be. I'm sorry, Operations Director Dan Corcoran. I forgot that part, Jen. You may recall Penny mentioned one really important word, and that's internal. And to the recruitment issue is our goal is to actually grow those folks from existing staff that are invested in the community, that are invested in the district, that are already anchored here. We've worked successfully in recruiting, pulling from other organizations through incentives and other means to pull from other communities. but that hasn't always been successful. But the opportunity to have employees that are already employed by the district, that know the district, we know them, we believe that this is hopefully going to be a much more higher success rate to develop those tenured junior and eventually senior operators of the next generation.
I'd like to compliment you on that, recognizing that, because our general manager and I talked about that. My own career at East Bay Mud was based on bridging from one type of career up into the IT area. And so it's really, really interesting. It's how you retain your employees. And I would encourage any employee who wants to be promoted to think beyond that and understand that, you know, a soft career or a permanent career is really something to decide on.
And just jumping in on this, again, building community, having an opportunity for people who grew up here to have a career, not necessarily a college-based career, to be the employer of choice. That's how we build stability. That's how we avoid flight, because we've all been in organizations that were the training grounds where better paid, but you know, people that don't want to move down the hill or commute down the hill, if they grew up here, they have the opportunity to start here and grow and flourish. This is what we're looking for.
I would just say that the risk of investing in our employees is well worth it, because the opposite is true. If you don't invest in your employees and they stay, what are you left with?
Thanks for the break. I appreciate the break. My voice is going. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the CIP. Currently, the CIP is a 5-year plan that is adopted by the board and referenced in the annual budget, with individual projects approved on a project-by-project basis throughout the year from the applicable fund balance. To strengthen the connection between the long-term planning and the annual budgeting, staff proposes that the board adopt the 5-year CIP and approve the first-year budget as part of the annual budget process. This proposal will establish the planned CIP expenditures for the next budget year and incorporate the process into future budget cycles, creating a consistent annual process for funding capital projects and then presenting the entire expenditure budget to the public, providing a more comprehensive financial picture. This process also follows the recommendations by GFOA. In the first year of the CIP, if the first-year CIP budget is approved, staff will return to the board in the first quarter of 2026 with proposed revisions to the applicable board policies, and ensure that the board has opportunity to review all CIP projects through the award of contracts and receive quarterly updates on how the progress is going. Also, if approved, engineering will return to the board for approval to fund any remaining projects from 2025 that were not funded, and then they will provide you with an analysis of the adopted 2025 CIPs and where we're at on that. So we're going to move on to the 2026 to 30 financial plan. The board adopts a 5-year financial plan with the budget and the 5-year CIP. Prior financial plans have not displayed the unrestricted available fund balance for reserves, pay-go, projects, or other operational needs. It has shown a combined balance of restricted and unrestricted funding. As mentioned earlier, staff is proposing that the board adopt the first year of the CIP in coordination with the adoption of the budget and debt service. And that, as mentioned, it will strengthen the connection between the two. And it will also we will also make sure moving forward that the restricted and unrestricted is separately reported. This slide shows the financial plans and assumptions. You will notice that we did include rate increases for 2026, 27, and 28 per our Prop 218 notice. 2029 and 30 are pending a future cost of service analysis. We also assume that the district will spend FCCs for eligible debt service payments, and remaining FCCs are planned to help support the 28, 29, and 30 CIP. An assumption for growth is projected at 0.62, as mentioned earlier. Expenses included a 3% increase for 2027 and a 5% increase based off cost of inflation. And finally, there are no assumptions for debt in our presentation for right now. If the board approves what you have, the CIP today, staff will return with a financial plan on December 8th that will show the debt service. This is the total district 5-year financial plan. And we're going to show debt service separately. It has been shown on the screen before, but there's just so much information now with the unrestricted and the restricted, we decided to break it out. The ending fund balance in '28 is in the negative due to the CIP and the El Dorado Hills water treatment plant for construction and replacement of the dam. The district will need to determine future mixed funding, including additional debt and rate increases, or we will need to defer projects. Staff will try to pursue grants and determine if low-interest loans or bond funding will be the most effective to fund these projects, and also engage in the cost of service analysis to determine the appropriate rate structure for the board's consideration. Our days of cash on hand is calculated with unrestricted funding only and is needed to maintain our credit ratings, which will not be met without rate increases or deferring projects starting in '28. As with the total district financial plan, the water fund will not be able to support the CIP in 2028 without additional debt or rate increases or deferring of projects. As discussed, staff will prepare a financial plan for the December 8th meeting that includes debt. The proposed projects do not have an impact on the wastewater fund. So the wastewater fund financial plan shows that the district will meet days of cash on hand until 2028. The ending fund balance for unrestricted will go into the negative in 2030 without a rate increase, and the financial plan is subject to change based on the development of the 30-year plan. Our next topic is reserves. So there are several reasons it's vital to maintain reserves, including GFOA best practices. Reserves are a crucial tool in managing financial and operational risk. They provide funding to help with required days of cash on hand and to maintain credit ratings. They provide financial stability by helping the district deliver consistent services to the public and allowing for security during unforeseen events like recessions or natural disasters. They provide a financial cushion to help the district maintain stable financials as they do not need to react to every minor fluctuation in revenues or expenditures. Staff will bring a revised board policy forward for approval in the first quarter of 2026 to define the levels of the reserves, how they will be maintained, how they can be used, and when they should be replenished if they fall below the reserve target. The district reserves include an operating reserve that should remain in place to help support the days of cash on hand and should only be used in a catastrophic event or when rates cannot be increased for a short period of time. The current requirement is 3 months or 90 days of average operating expenditures minus depreciation. The capital reserve pays for the replacement of existing facilities and equipment that are not planned as part of the annual CIP or for emergencies. The calculation for this reserve is 100% of prior year depreciation. The routine capital reserve is for the replacement of fleet and equipment. However, the calculation is the same as the capital reserve. So when we bring the policy back to the board, we're going to recommend that we combine the two reserves. The self-insurance reserve should pay the district's insurance deductibles in the event of claims. The recommended amount for this reserve is $1 million. The JBA.
Million.
I'm not sure.
Insurance company, Jake.
I believe
I
it's
think
just.
it was in the budget, wasn't it? That's what, it was almost $1 million.
Right now, we maintain our insurance through the JPIA.
Right.
So whatever those deductibles are as we engage in different claims.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not the payment for the liability though.
Okay.
It's not for our annual payment. It's if we have to make a claim, then we use this fund to pay the deductible.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sorry, Pravani. The pension unfunded accrued liability reserve was requested by the board to pay the gap between the annual accrued liability for CalPERS and the newly accrued pension amount after paying the pension off in 2022. Since the idea of this reserve is to make additional annual payments to CalPERS, To reduce liability, staff will recommend removing this reserve because it's not truly a reserve if we're spending it annually. Instead, we would like to develop a calculation that can be used during budget development, and then the board will see, it'll be transparent to the board that we're making that payment on an annual basis per the level that you have approved. The district reserves have been included in the available fund balance and combined with the restricted funding when being reported. Staff would also like to propose that separate accounts be developed to track the funding and provide for increased transparency. Since the reserves are considered unrestricted, they will be used to calculate the district's cash on hand. In addition, making the reserves a priority will help to reduce the district's negative unrestricted net position. On this slide, you're going to see that the top chart shows the targeted reserves calculated per the current policy and administrative regulation. For the operating reserve, the total district would have a reserve of $25.6 million. Capital reserve, including both types, would have be $28.3 million. Of course, the self-insurance reserve would be $1 million, and the pension reserve, per the current calculation, would have been $4.3 million. Currently, the total district's unrestricted available fund balance, which is the only source that can be used to fund reserves, is not sufficient to fund them. Staff is recommending that the board approve the reserves as shown in the bottom table. The operating and self-insurance reserve would be 100% funded based on the current calculations. The capital reserve would be funded at $11.1 million, which will be $17.2 million less than the target. Staff is recommending that the pension reserve be removed as discussed, and we wait to make a payment until staff have time to develop the appropriate calculation and provide an update to the board in the first quarter of 2026. Okay, we're going to move on to debt service now. We're going to go over existing outstanding debt service coverage ratio per the bond covenants, debt service coverage ratio per the district's internal policy, existing and proposed debt, and existing and proposed annual debt service payments, and then the proposed debt service coverage ratio if we take the new debt on. This chart shows the existing outstanding debt for the district, which is in 25 at $426 million approximately, and will be, if we take no additional debt on, it would be at $314 in 2030. This chart shows that the district will continue to meet its debt service coverage ratio per the bond covenants for the total district and water through 2030. But the wastewater fund will drop below the 1.25 minimum in 2030 without additional rate increases or reduced expenses. This is a calculation that includes senior debt only.
Penny, I noticed that it's a steep drop-off looking at the wastewater fund in the 2030 year. We're, oops, I moved the page, but, so it was, steady or dropping a little, but why did it drop 0.7 from 1.89 to 1.18 so quickly, just in that 1 year?
I would have to research it, but off the top of my head, I think it's going to be the use of the FCCs in the capital plan.
Okay.
We're going to pretty much deplete them to support the capital plan.
Okay.
Okay, where was I? Oh, okay. This chart shows the, this was for wastewater. Hold on, sorry. This chart shows the district's internal policy, that it will not meet in 2026 or 30 for the total district, 2026 for water, or 2029 and 30 for wastewater. The calculation includes both senior and subordinate debt, and it excludes FCC revenues. This goal should be reviewed as it is overambitious with the district's CIP needs where debt is needed to fund projects. At a minimum, FCC revenues should be included since they are an eligible source to pay debt that improves or expands the system. This chart is assuming the use of bonds to fund the 2028 CIP. That's just to be conservative, though. As discussed, staff will always pursue grants and analyze all debt options to recommend the debt that is in the best interest of the ratepayers, rather the district utilizes bonds or low-interest loans. As shown in the current debt, it's at $426 million in 2025, and it will grow to $585 million in 2028 with the current CIP. And then we will have a financial plan that represents that on the December 8th meeting for you. This chart shows the annual debt service payments for the existing debt and the proposed debt. If the district moves forward with the proposed debt, the debt service payments will increase by approximately $14 million annually. This amount will impact the district's ability to have PAYGO projects without rate increases. This chart is for the debt service coverage ratio with the proposed debt. The green lines were added to show what the debt service coverage ratio will be with the proposed debt and per the bond requirements of 1.25. As shown, the district will not meet the debt service coverage for water in 29 or 30, which is necessary by fund in this case since the new debt will be 100% water. The district will pursue a cost of service analysis that will show the board what is needed to fund these future needs. Today, we're asking to receive input from the board and the public. Staff will take the input and update the 2026 budgets and the 2026 to 30 financial plans per today's direction from the board. For the December 8th meeting. On December 8th, staff will ask the board to consider adoption of the 26 operating and CIP budgets and the 2026 to 30 financial plans. Staff will also bring revised budget policies to the board the first quarter of 26 for your consideration. And in 2026, the district will engage in a cost of service analysis. This is a workshop for information only and does not require any board action. I thank you for your time and your consideration. I know it was a lot of information, so I'm available if you want to ask any questions or if we want to go back and look at something.
Yeah, if you could go, it was page 19, the targeted reserves per AR and the 2026 recommended reserves, that slide. Yeah, well, you got there fast. Could you go through that again and explain the changes and how we're going to implement them?
Well, I didn't change anything at this point because we haven't brought you a policy. So this is based on the current policy, what those that top chart shows what the targeted reserve should be. We're not going to make those reserves. We don't have the fund balance to support it. So this bottom chart are the recommended reserves, and if you look at the financial plan, I can have Jen go back, but what I'm taking is the unrestricted available fund balance, using that to separate the reserves out, and then it leaves us a minimal fund balance.
So the bottom portion, the recommended reserves for 2026 are how we are now,
Yes, that's what we can afford to do right now.
right? But were you going to propose, well, we're going to propose new policies where we would increase those reserves, correct?
Right, but the new policies will apply going forward, not for this recommended 2026
Well, okay,
reserve.
well, when we look at those, maybe we can discuss how we're going to fund that. I mean,
Yes.
so,
And I think overall, the proposal is that we would make recommendations to the board each year as we bring our budget forward of how we can augment those reserves until we get to the point where they're fully funded. So like with the 2026 recommendation is using fund balance to start to build those reserves up.
so
So
it'll be
we're
a
building up a savings
slow
account.
incremental process?
Yes.
Okay, not all at once. Okay,
Oh, yeah, no, it's going to take the time for us to build the reserves.
okay, thank you.
Well, I mean, this is tough stuff, and you face some challenges. And unfortunately, there are very few things within our control. One is rates, and the other is assuming more debt. And that's the things we have control. You know, grants are hope. and you can't plan on using hope. And external funds, just looking at the world around us, are going to be, I believe, diminishing, or many more people going for a shrinking pot. So just an observation, and thank you for helping to try and put it all right for us. But it's a daunting challenge.
Okay. We have an action item.
So I know that this is going to lead, the approval of the CIP that we just did
Right.
rolls into the budget that we just had the workshop on that you'll bring back for approval next month. And that rolls into the cost of service study that we'll see. I'd like to have a feel for, if we adopt this budget, what would be the bottom line impact on our rates? Not a detailed cost of service study, but kind of like the neophyte
Okay.
analysis I did that said debt service going up 10 million. What's that going to do to our rates? Just to give us a peek at what the future brings.
We can do that. We can include
Thank you.
The estimated rate increases for the financial plan.
that's a really
Yeah,
good.
rough estimate. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
So I think what Director Dwyer is saying is, you can take your percent, I mean, you mentioned in this workshop, or it was under CIP, estimating a 3% increase. How much would $10 million be per rate, or per customer, or per billing address, or whatever? And could it be 5%, or could it be 8%? But it could be beneficial, to give that data. Just paint a picture.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, is there any public comment on this workshop item?
If members of the public would like to address the board on workshop item number 11, please refer to the instructions in today's agenda. President Dwyer, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on workshop item number 11, information only, so the board will not be taking action. Believe we're now ready for action item number 13.
Oh, okay.
Been so patient.
This is kind of to wind us down from the,
The cool down period.
yeah, cool down. Okay, thanks.
Hopefully. All right. Okay, thanks for hanging in there for me. So, good morning, board. Daniel Goldman, I'm a senior civil engineer here with the district. Today, I am going to be presenting on the Reservoir 1 filter valve replacement project, specifically request for an equipment purchase contract award and project funding. So quickly through previous board actions, in October of 2024, the 2025 to 29 capital improvement plan was adopted and included the water treatment plant asset replacement program. So this project is in line with that water treatment plant asset replacement program. Sorry, a couple more there.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
In July of this year, the board awarded a contract to Hurwitz Engineering to start design of the Reservoir 1 filter valve replacement project. And we returned to the board in October where a contract amendment was approved for some expanded design services, which we'll discuss throughout the slides here. So summary of the issue, we have the Reservoir 1 water treatment plant up in Pollock Pines, which produces up to 26 million gallons per day of drinking water. We have filtration valves and actuators associated with the filter complex there that have reached the end of their useful life, and they require replacement at this time. These are critical operational components, which we'll discuss at length here, but long story short, if they were to fail, they do significantly hinder the plant's ability to produce drinking water. A couple of additional complications with this project here. All work must be completed during the annual outage when Res 1 water treatment plant is offline for the winter. So that gives us roughly October to March. Further complicated by the fact that these valves and actuators have extremely long lead times at this time. These are large diameter valves with specialty actuators, and we're looking at 33 to 37 weeks to get these products on site upon order. So to keep the current project schedule intact, we need to pre-purchase some of this equipment. So some background here. Again, Res 1 water treatment plant is a filtration and chlorination process. So we're talking about the filters here, so a major component of that process. This is all original 1989 equipment. And we have multiple valves that operations staff have noted are failing to close or failing to seal at full close condition. So again, failure here would impact production significantly at the Res 1 plant. And it's worth noting here that this project addresses the filter gallery valves, which we'll see some pictures of. We also have control column valves on the other end of the filter complex, which are currently slated to be addressed in a separate CIP in the coming years. So design was initiated, as I mentioned, in July of this year. We identified the valves as long lead items at that time. We're looking at completing design around February, so that doesn't give us the time frame that we need to procure these through standard RFB and then contractor procurement processes. So again, we're looking to maintain our fall 2026 mobilization date with this ask today. So some overview on this project and the scope. We have 24 valve and actuator replacements that are in question here. We have 8 of each filter effluent, filter to waste, and backwash air supply valves. They're varying sizes, and we'll go through each of the different valves over the next few slides. On the right there, just looking down what we call the filter gallery, below grade concrete tunnel where all of this equipment is housed. As a part of this project, I mentioned that we had an expanded design scope with Herwood Engineering. Initially, looking at the project was a replacement in kind. Once we got into the detailed design phase, it became apparent that we did need to upgrade the power supply to the filter gallery from 120 to 480 volts. The old actuators are powered on shared 120 circuits, which is presenting a series of operational challenges with trying to operate multiple valves at one time and trying to create the proper torque for seating the valves at the full closed position. In addition to the power upgrade, as I mentioned, we have those control column valves that will be addressed in the future. In order to improve access to that, we're looking at a PLC replacement and relocation for the programmable logic controller that controls the filter complex up at Res 1. So again, this will improve access to the control column valves for the next, call it, phase of this project, which is coming in future years. And additionally, it'll modernize and standardize that PLC to be more in line with what we have at other places in the district.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
That the picture on the left, it looks like a lot of tripping hazards to me. It doesn't look like a very safe environment. It'd be very easy to back up and then trip over something. Are we going to be? Is there any way we can try to improve that so there's a safe pathway?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a good observation. Unfortunately, the way that this current gallery is set up, it would be a pretty significant undertaking to rearrange it. Additionally, what you're looking at here, you have the walkway, the grate, right on the left, and then on the right, you're below that grate. So we have to maintain easy access to all of those actuators, so we can't raise that walkway up, and then the actuators are no longer accessible to the electricians, because those do require access periodically. So,
Yeah, I noticed the 2 concrete walls, kind of hard to
yeah.
make room.
Yeah, and to that point, we're also installing an overhead kind of crane system, if you will. It's a manually operated crane system to help us move things around in here as part of this project. So that'll help with some of the tripping hazards too.
Good.
I will add that if you're in a facility like this, you do not back up.
Right.
That's true. Yeah. So I'm going to go through the 3 different types of valves that we're dealing with here. These are the 30-inch filter effluent isolation valves. So on each filter cell, this is the valve that isolates the discharge from that filter to the remainder of the treatment process. On the left, again, above the walkway, you can see the actuators called out there for these 30-inch valves. And then on the right, we're just peeking underneath that walkway with the 30-inch valve called out there on the right. Go to the next one. These are the 16-inch filter to waste valves. So same visuals here, just pointing at different components. In the center of the walkway, we have the actuators for the filter to waste valves. And then on the right, we have the filter to waste valve itself below the walkway. The filter to waste valves are used to move water from the discharge of the filter when it's not ready to be discharged for further use and eventually drinking. So this is after plant startup, after a backwash, if we're having turbidity upsets. So these are used for various O&M components and processes at the plant. And finally, we have 8-inch backwash air valves. So these are smaller valves. They're also all located above that graded walkway, which simplifies this process. But these are the same age, and we're including these with this project as well. You can see the valves and actuators on the green air piping there that are scheduled to be replaced. So I've mentioned project schedule a few times here for a number of reasons with this particular project. So I'm going to walk us through where we are today in November 2025 through the end of the project as we currently have it scheduled. So we're here today requesting approval to pre-purchase some of this long lead equipment. Assuming that we get that approval, we will go ahead and place those equipment orders this month. Next month, we'll work with the vendor for submittals and shop drawing approvals to make sure that we're getting everything that we want and need. Looking ahead into 2026, in February, we would anticipate completing our design deliverables and issuing a request for bids to the construction contractors to get them on board to complete this project. We're hoping to award a construction contract in the March-April timeframe next year, which would allow us to have a little bit of lead time, potentially some on-site work ahead of the plant shutting down. There are a few things that can be done, but largely preparing us for a September-October mobilization with that construction contractor, and it would be at that same time we would receive this pre-purchased equipment. And that would allow us to use the fall-winter 26 into 2027 outage to complete this project. So we did issue a request for bids for the equipment purchase on October 7th, which closed on October 24th, and we received proposals from B&K Valves and Equipment as well as Southwest Valve and Equipment. And the results of that RFB are here on this slide. We had B&K at $595,000, and Southwest Valve and Equipment came in a little bit higher. Following review of those proposals and the equipment that were proposed in each, we do recommend awarding to B&K Valves and Equipment.
It's always nice to see when bids are reasonably close together.
Yep.
I think sometimes it's an indication of you wrote the proposal clearly so that they knew exactly what they were bidding on.
Yeah, it helps to have a real good spec like we did on this project. We also had worked through like a basis of design level study, so we had some work done up front, and vendors were aware that this was coming, so I think that helped. Before we get into kind of the summary slides here, just a quick note on environmental review. This project is exempt from CEQA as a Class 2 for replacement of existing facilities. So funding request summary here. We have the equipment purchase from B&K for $595,000. None of the proposals that we received included sales tax, so we do have a $50,000 line item here to cover that sales tax, so it's not a surprise for us on the back end. And then $20,000 for capitalized labor to get us through the submittals, shop drawings, and rest of the design phase of the project, all the way out to bid next spring. So board options here. Option 1, award a contract to B&K Valves and Equipment Incorporated in the not-to-exceed amount of $595,674 for purchase of valves, actuators, and appurtenances, and authorize project funding of $20,000 for capitalized labor and $50,000 for estimated sales tax for a total funding request of $665,674 for the Reservoir 1 filter valve replacement project, and we are recommending option 1.
Move on.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Enzini. Any board comment?
Daniel, if you'd, for the public that are here, if you could just give like a 90-second, say, what are we filtering? What happens to the, what happens to the backwash, to kind of just give a greater context of the project?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, Reservoir 1 water treatment plant is a filtration and chlorination process. So from a high level, what that means is This treatment plant takes raw water that's coming from our various raw water sources up the hill. We're taking solids out of that water through the filtration process, and then that water is then disinfected before it goes out into the drinking water system. So we have a two-step, essentially. It's a high-level view. Is filtration, physically removing solids, and then disinfection, chemical disinfection.
And what ends up in the filters?
A lot of solid grit, dirt. All that stuff has to be backwashed out, and then we have to process those solids so that we can keep the plant running. If you don't keep your filters clean, they plug up and they stop working.
And then what happens to the backwash?
The backwash water up at Res 1, we have solids drying beds that we use to get rid of all of those solids. And then we also have a tank where we allow some of that to settle out.
And thank you. And it just, as we go through these fairly high dollar amount, it just seems like this is a filter, and I think it helps for the public to understand that this is what keeps the system going, how we go from, raw water to potable water. So thank you.
Correct, yeah. Key process up there at Res 1.
At Res 1, I think the backwash has always been a little problematic because we take that backwash from backwashing the filters, recirculate it into the beginning of the process and run it through again, with some exception where we can capture the solids. But it's a design we probably wouldn't incorporate if we had to start over.
That's correct, and that kind of goes back to what John Money was speaking about earlier with the Res 1, being on the docket down the road
On the
as needing to
docket,
be replaced.
okay. Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Any other board comments? Okay, is there any public comment on this item?
If members of the public would like to address the board on action item number 13, please refer to the instructions in today's agenda. President Dwyer, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on action item number 13. Option 1, moved by Director Penn and seconded by Director Anzini. I believe we're ready for the vote.
Okay, please vote.
And you're doing double duty in the House of Representatives?
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you all. And at this point, we'll adjourn to closed session. Council, any estimate on how long that closed session is going to take?
Well, I hope it's short.
We do too.
2 minutes, please.
Can we just do thumbs?
10 minutes?
Is lunch involved?
But I should say, that the board will be meeting in closed session to discuss the matter that has been agendized as closed session item A on today's published agenda. And so hopefully not more than 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
We'll close this meeting and reopen not before 12:05, but it could be after.
At a closed session, Counselor, anything to report?
Thank you, President Dwyer. The board met in closed session to review the performance of the general counsel and took no reportable action. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll adjourn to our, oops.
I want to go over the action items that are.
Oh, yes,
reported here.
please.
Yeah, noticeably, we always, at the end of our agenda, we have items that board members are interested in. And one of the questions when we were doing the CIP and the financial planning or the approval process is AI has become a very considerable piece in the business world. One of the ideas that I had, and I wasn't sure, maybe you can answer that, do we have an AI policy in our technology plans?
We do have an AI policy. Staff put one together. It's been a few months now. We have finalized it, implemented it. The guidance to staff is we're not going to engage in using AI unless we have conversation and understand its impact and what information we can share with it. And so any proposal to use any particular item that is out there will go through a committee that will evaluate it. So, using information technology, legal understanding, because I think generally when people use AI, they don't understand that everything you feed into the AI is stored. So potentially we could be putting district information out into the world where it's readily available and you could get bad actors that use it. So we have a policy that defines how we can have conversations and then how we can determine whether the benefits of it outweighs any issues or how we can be cognizant of potential issues and balance the use of it out. So yes, we do have a policy.
Okay. And we have to be real careful about talking about these things too much at length because they're not on the agenda.
I got a way to fix that.
Wait,
Meeting
wait,
it, what?
Well, first of all, definition of AI is building a machine that would be proud of me. One thing I would like is not a high priority.
Your microphone.
Oh, sorry. It is on. That has to do with demographics, shifting demographics in the county. Because as I mentioned last meeting, the population of the county is going down, but our customer base is going up. And I would love to maybe work with the county and understand where the infill is occurring and where, there's a whole bunch of different developments going on. And I think in our long-term planning, it would probably help to look at projections and how the shift is going on within the county. So not a high priority, something that I would like to see.
Okay, anything else? All right, meeting adjourned.
At 12:39 p.m.